Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to On Point. This episode, I sit down with the Lethal Podcast guys, go over setups and kind of how they arrived at their arrow setups and what they're using this year, and kind of talk about what happened to the budget bow, where did it go, what happened, what am I moving to, and just turned out to be a really good, fun episode about talking about setups, and just kind of wanted to keep everybody updated with the budget build. So outside of that, it was a fun episode. Appreciate the Lethal Podcast guys. Be sure to go check them out, the Lethal Podcast, and they're on all platforms. You can listen to them. They're very in-depth, very knowledgeable guys. And if you haven't yet, be sure to check out the YouTube video. The Broadhead video is up, and this is part one. There'll probably be 3 parts, but this is the largest Broadhead test ever performed, and the first video is officially up. Next video should be out in a couple days. But just type in the largest Broadhead test ever performed, or type in my name, Garrett Weaver. You'll find the video. It's pretty easy. And check it out. Let me know what you think. I kind of broke down the video, more of a in-depth video than what the Born and Raised guys did. It's definitely 2 different styles of videos there, and very excited to see what you guys think. So without any further ado, this is arrow setups and what happened to the budget bow, and hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you in the end. Let's go ahead and get some introductions here.
I'm
Starting
Matt.
with Matt. There you go.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Matt. I'm in Kansas City. I don't know. Do you want what do we want? Do you want like our favorite ice cream or toothpaste or something like that?
You can give me the whole shebang.
Okay.
Yeah, it just a little bit about you, and you guys are all part of the same podcast. So I don't need 3. I'm from the Lethal Podcasts.
Yeah. We're all from Lethal Podcast.
Now we might say it just to be obnoxious, though.
Matt Baum. I live in Kansas City. I grew up hunting whitetail and turkey. It's still what I hunt. I eventually aspire to start hunting out west when I get some health issues figured out with my guts. That's no fun. I work in big data and IT, so I stare at spreadsheets quite a bit and like to absorb data and understand what's happening with it. So, yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Well, you're gonna like those charts I sent you then.
Yeah, dude, you have no idea. Like spreadsheets, like
Yeah.
do it for me. I'm telling you.
All right, let's not get too into that, Matt.
I'm not going any further.
All right. Well, I'm Rob Hummel. Guess been bow hunting for most of my adult life. Not much growing up, but I guess my background is engineering and design, and I guess now I've helped run an archery shop for like 5-6 years, and now I have my own little business. And like Matt, I have dreams of going to big and beautiful places. Primarily, I guess Alaska's probably first on the list for next year, hopefully Africa in 2 to 3. So,
Where at in Africa are you looking to go?
there's a couple of different places, I guess, on the potential list, depending on who specifically I end up going with and what the animal list turns into. But
We're lucky enough to be plugged in with some people
pretty
that
good
are very,
guys.
very plugged into the African hunting community. So
Yeah,
Perfect. Yeah.
there's some options there. So
Yeah, we went there. If you have any questions, I'm not an expert, but we went there last April. And killed some stuff and had a fun trip, and I could tell you some do's and don'ts while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of learn from our mistakes, kind of thing.
Always appreciate it.
Yeah. But
All right.
Garrett Fairchild.
Yep, Garrett Fairchild, the other Garrett.
I could be the other Garrett. I don't care.
Well, you're the first Garrett now because we're
That's
on your
true.
show.
That's true.
that's right.
And you had a podcast first, so
That's
you can be
Did
Garrett
have-
number 1, I
Okay.
guess.
You got dibs on Garrett.
sweet.
I live in Tigard, Oregon, so I'm one of those Portland hunters, I guess. But I grew up I grew up in Ohio, hunting whitetail. I didn't care much for turkeys because we didn't have them.
Wrong.
Wrong. We just didn't have them. They weren't there.
Huh.
But now I live out here and hunt elk primarily and deer as a side project for elk.
And bear. Yeah, bear.
And bear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta
Have you
start
gone this year yet?
for bear, for
Yeah.
fall bear.
Yeah.
We went scouting last weekend, but more scouting, less bear hunting. So actually,
Oh.
I packed a rifle around like an idiot, which was not a good idea because we went a good ways. But you never know.
Well, I was when we scheduled this thing, I'm like, shit, like I gotta prioritize the podcast in front of bear hunting right now because I need the content like super bad. But it's bear season.
Yeah.
But I can look out my window and I can see pretty much where I bear hunt, and it's like this 100-foot tall fog bank just coming over the mountain. I'm like, well, I'm perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a good day to be podcasting. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
No loss.
But so I invited you guys on because you guys are very similar into the same kind of stuff I'm into, but you guys probably even a little bit more into the weeds and in areas of archery that I haven't hit yet, and really love what you guys are doing with your podcast. So I wanted to come on, have you guys on, and talk about setups and why you guys are going with what you're going, because it's a pretty unanimous thing with you guys, because the Lethal Podcast is a bunch of guys that kind of didn't know each other, right?
Yeah.
And then through
know,
Met
Facebook,
through Facebook.
yeah, through Facebook, you kind of figured out that you guys all agree and have really dove in deep into this stuff. And then now you have a podcast together, which I think is really cool. So, but I don't get to talk to guys that nerd out as much as I do very often. So, and you guys might be on a whole nother level of the nerding out. So,
Welcome to the nerd party.
yeah.
No kidding.
So, so
You brought the spreadsheets, so
that's going to be a quote. That'll be the name of the podcast. But yeah, so I did provide you guys with so we'll probably do 2 episodes, I'm guessing, one for broadheads, right?
yeah.
Which we will talk about here after this podcast is over, which is where the spreadsheets come in. But this is kind of I want to talk to you guys about how you've arrived at your arrow setups, your bow setups, what you guys are using and why. And then, because I've had light arrow, I haven't had very many light arrow guys. I've had high FOC guys, screw FOC guys, heavy arrow guys, medium arrow guys. I have a light arrow guy coming. And then just kind of seeing how you guys all arrived at the same kind of arrow design and stuff like that kind of says volumes to why. And so I guess I'm shooting, you guys can judge me off of my setup. Right now I'm shooting 495 grains at about a 14% FOC, probably a 14%, maybe 15%.
Yeah.
And that's the heaviest arrow I've ever shot for hunting.
Solid setup.
Yeah, I've shot 457 grains the last couple years. Before that, I was 420. It seems the more I hunt, the longer I shoot. And honestly, I like being around 457 more. But the more I hunt and the more I grow in the archery, the heavier I get. How did you guys arrive at your setups?
Wow.
How long you got?
Well, even yeah. Well, I would like to point out, and God, I hope we have agreements that agree to disagree. I guess that even within the 3 of us, we have 3 very different setups.
Oh,
like even though we are all of the same mindset, I think the game we're pursuing. The style of hunting that we do, even though we're all proponents of the same thing, we have 3 incredibly different
and just
setups.
varying comfort levels.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so
that
basically what
plays
I'm saying
a big
is
part
just-
of it.
Yeah, Garrett's not as good of a shot as us, so that's why he has to go with lighter arrows.
Hey.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
true, though.
Garrett's probably the best shot out of all of us. I would
I
bet.
don't know. I did, unless I get an elk in front of me, apparently, because I missed 4 of those last year. So
you missed 4
Yeah.
elk last year?
yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Hey, you're the one that keeps bringing it up.
You're not
Just gotta-
sour about it.
I gotta be humble at some point.
I don't. I didn't have the as far as like how I arrived at my setup. I'll give the story of like in a really really short fashion because it's not that exciting. A lot of guys go to heavy arrows because they have a penetration issue or something along those lines, or they shot a gosh darn mechanical at a deer and it didn't perform the way they wanted it to. And that isn't my story at all. My story is I was deer hunting, and a turkey walked up, and I'm a big turkey nerd. So, I mean, this is the biggest turkey I've ever seen. He was quite, like, I'm not even joking when I say he was tripping over his beard walking up to me. He was gigantic. And I hadn't taken an arrow out of the quiver yet, and I was shooting hypodermics at the time, and every arrow I pulled out of my quiver, it popped the band on all of them.
Oh, jeez.
Every single one. And like on the last one, like as I was pulling it out, like the turkey like saw me moving and bounced out of there. And I quite literally went home and threw away my broadheads and went and bought Slit Tricks the next day. And so that I kind of went away from that. That's what started the trickle, I guess, of going into the deep end of arrow building. And went from a 400-ish grain, 425-ish grain arrow at the time to I think I went to 450 to start, and then I went to like 525, and then now I'm somewhere around 625, give or take. I don't know if we have. Well, I'm sure we all have our own reasons, but I don't know if there's been like a single unifying reason other than shit happens. And you know, it's hunting. You can't control the animal, you can't control the weather, and I just think I guess that you know, I should have
stack
your
the cards as much in your favor as you can.
Yeah, stack the deck for sure. And
as
just
much
trying
as you're
to
comfortable.
Just trying to make it to where if a bad shot happens, whether I suck or the animal moves or a gust of wind or a tree branch jumps in the way, that, you know, we can prevail. So I don't know. What do you, Rob, Garrett? Do you have like a distinct story? What made you switch?
Mine is, I guess I'm kind of a little bit of an oddball with this because, I mean, a lot of the people that I help are coming off of failures. You know, that's where, you know, they start searching for some kind of an answer. I got my first bow. I got set up by, you know, the local pro shop. Normal arrows, speed bow, and a speed bow for the time. And I guess with my engineering background, I kind of automatically went, well, I really don't like these moving blades. Like, give me a fixed blade that just looks better. But I had this poorly tuned high performance bow with a super light arrow, and I shot my broadheads for the first time and watched them just like barrel roll, corkscrew down range, and went, something is very wrong. And me being, I guess, I dove headfirst into how does this all work? And like, I know that it, like, from a physics standpoint, I'm like, I know that this should fly. Like, something's wrong. And so I ended up pretty much taking over everything myself, figuring out how to tune. I built a 500 grain arrow with like 18% front of center, fixed 2-blade up front, and I killed my first deer that season with no issues. And I went, well, that worked well. And I just kind of snowballed from there. I went from a 500 grain setup to
Snowball indeed.
like 650 to a like 730
Holy crap.
to
We're just getting started. Don't
950.
worry.
You're at 950.
I shoot an 80-pound bow. I have a 30-inch draw.
Oh, I'm jealous.
His 950 is coming in at 240.
230.
Okay.
Yeah, like 232. But I mean, I can on my single pin, or I guess my double pin fast Eddie, I can still reach 90 yards. I mean,
wow.
I have
Okay.
no issue hunting comfortably to 50, 60. I mean, the pig that I shot like a month ago was at 40 yards. So at that point, like, the weight's where it's at because of, I guess, what I wanted to build and where, I guess, from testing, I liked the performance of the bow. Like the RX-1 and the RX-3, my last 2 years here, both had definite efficiency jumps between like 9 and like 11%, or 9 and 11 grains per pound. And so that's just kind of where I ended up, like kind of aiming for that ballpark, and it is what it is. But that's where it's comfort. I'm comfortable with it. I mean, with that Fast Eddie double pin, I can literally put my top pin at 20 and using the top of my bubble as my third pin, because it's equal distance, I have known reference to like 43 yards without moving my sight. So
Makes sense.
At that point, for me, for my setup, I have no real downside because that's pretty normal gaps for a lot of people.
So it goes 20, 30, and then 40
Yeah.
for you? Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So-
that's interesting. Do you ever have any problems with the trajectory shooting? I mean, you're shooting 240, so the trajectory is not absolute horrible, but it's 40 feet per, or let's see, you're 60 feet per second faster than probably a lot of trad shooters, maybe even faster than that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite difference between like 230 and 200. I've went as low as 200 feet per second with a compound, and it's too slow for me. 230 to 240 is actually my comfort zone.
Okay.
And that's my hunting style. Unless it's a shot past like 40 yards, I don't move my pin. I know my trajectory, I know my holdovers, and I naturally am comfortable with that. So I'm not worried about moving my sight all over the place. I know the flight path, and I run with it. So as long as I can get to 40 in that mindset, it's not too slow for me. But I mean, there's, I guess, a lot of other factors, because like I have a lower anchor. I anchor off the corner of my jaw, and I run my sights close to the riser. Both of those tighten gaps, and so I set myself up to maximize to, mitigate some of the downsides of lower speed. But like, I could shoot lighter. I don't know. I like it.
Why not?
And you're also, I mean, yeah, you shoot 950 for whitetail, but at the same time, you don't usually need to shoot more than 40 yards.
No, yeah.
So it doesn't
And
matter.
that's, I mean, I've made this comment before. Like, I mean, one benefit is, I guess, I'm always tweaking on other people's bows. I'm always working on stuff for people. And so for me, especially with some of the friends and acquaintances that I have throughout the industry and throughout the country and the world, if an opportunity presents itself where, hey, you want to fly over here and go on a cull bull hunt,
Or fly to Russia.
Or,
and
yeah,
hunt
hey.
a Russian boar.
I actually already have a guy that wants me to go over there.
By the way, Garrett, I guess you can debut this news on your podcast if you want. The thanks to the Ashby Bow Hunting Foundation, you can now legally bow hunt in Russia. Before
Really?
you could not. Yep,
That's
cool.
Before it was not legal to, and now you can.
They got
Okay.
some big bears over there.
Big bears.
My buddy was just sending me photos of this guy, a customer of his, of these big, just giant bears he's been killing, and then he told me where it was. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That guy's got some serious dough, to go with that bear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry
But,
to interrupt.
Oh no.
So what kind of
no.
broadhead are you using now then?
I guess I play with a bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
So I guess for my compound setup, RX3, 80-30, about 950 at 230 feet per second. And my primary broadhead, I'll say, is the Grizzly Stick Alaskan 200. And
Small head, really.
it is. Yeah, and that's, I mean, width-wise, it's the same as most stuff that I run. It's an inch and an eighth.
Internet.
But one thing that I like with that one, and this is partly because of the setups that I'm running, I have a lot of force. There's a lot of momentum there. There's a lot of kinetic energy there. And so at impact, there is a lot of the potential for a lot of stress. With that, I tend to, one, prefer convex type blades, just to reinforce that tip. And I don't like super long blades because it's just additional leverage against my shaft. And I mean, I've got adequate force to make up the little bit of efficiency difference between the two. But I guess
That's one of the big differences between Rob and Garrett and I. But we use much longer broadheads than Rob does.
yeah.
You guys
Well,
go
and
for the
that's-
3-to-1 mechanical or what advantage kind of thing?
Kind of. We can talk about it.
Yeah, so I have kind of both ends of the spectrum, though, because the flip side of all this is my longbow, which I'm going to be taking in the woods this fall for whitetail. I already got a pig on it. But that's a 76-pound, like, hill-style longbow, drawn to 29 3/4. And that is, I just tweaked it and rebuilt those actually tonight. But those are 741 grains and like 28% front of center. And that has a 3-to-1. It's a 225 tough head on the front, direct bond.
Stealing my idea.
And stealing your thunder, Matt?
No, mine's cooler than
I
that, so.
got mine bloody. So, but that's, you know, again, it's a heavy bow,
Right.
but that's at 130 feet per second. I am glacial. I have like no
Make a cup
force
of coffee.
at all. Like I'm at like, I'm in like the 0.4s for momentum. And I want to say I'm around like 25 foot-pounds.
I was gonna say you're probably 25 foot pounds,
Like-
25 to 30. Yeah,
So
it's a groundhog arrow.
right? But with that, I mean, I have plenty of mass. And, like, I guess my goal with that one was to just kind of end up around 10 grains per pound in that ballpark. But with that, I'm wanting to maximize. And with the force, I'm not worried about, you know, the tip of that 3-to-1 style head. And that's, I mean, I'm not worried with even most like 60, 70 pound compound guys running normal weight arrows, or normal for me 5 to 6, 700 grains. But it's just, you know, the kind of complete opposite end of the spectrum as far as what that shaft is having to go through.
Yeah. Garrett.
Well, that leaves me. I actually got into what I shoot now because I moved to Oregon. So, grew up in Ohio. A whitetailer, I mean, if you ask me, whitetailer one of the easiest animals to kill.
Yeah.
As far, like, if you hit them with an arrow somewhere in the chest cavity, they're going to die. Might not find them if you run out of land, but they're going to die. They're not, they're soft animals.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, blacktail
but-
are probably even easier than that.
they're sketchy little guys, though.
Yeah.
You're twitchy.
Yeah. But so I always, I worked at a bow shop through college for 4 years, and then another year after that at a Field and Stream store as an archery tech. But I always shot, not always, but I went from anywhere from, I've shot deer with 350 grain arrows up to, well, before I moved here, I think the heaviest I shot was 440. And that was with a carbon injection, but I was shooting mechanicals that whole time. But then I moved here and we couldn't shoot, like you can't shoot mechanicals, but I also didn't want to because for elk, I just don't trust them. Like everything is bigger, and I did lose one deer that I shot, and I hit it in the shoulder, so that's on me, but shot it with a rage. I lost that deer. Like it died. I found it later, but I, just shoulder bladed it. I ran out of real estate to find it, so and then moved here, and I don't even know how I came across Valkyrie, but I somehow came across that system, and I was going to be building some sort of a high FOC heavyweight arrow anyway, so I was just like, well, this is pretty easy. I can just buy these components and slap them together. But turns out I really like the system, so, but so I was shooting the longer ones, the regular Jaggers. Now I've switched to the short Jags primarily just because it's going to be stronger.
Really like the way those look. Oh, man.
It's going to be a lot stronger. I haven't bent one. Like, I've pegged a rock a couple times just square and a little bit of tip curl, but other than that, it was fine. My buck that I shot last year, I just barely clipped the leg bone, or the humerus, I think, maybe, but I bent one of the blades on one of the vented 200 grain heads, which they don't make anymore, I'm assuming for that reason, because vented heads are weaker. Right. But yeah, so switched to 180 grain short Jags for this year, so hopefully those are pretty bomb proof. They should be, but we'll see.
I had a buddy shoot through a moose front leg, right above the knuckle. And Jack Lander, and he got all the way in and killed that bull, but he went through. He went the hard way. We'll put it that way. With the Valkyrie system, and that was pretty impressive. And everything was still, I think everything was still good. He might have broke his arrow, but
Valkyries ain't no joke.
I like the legit heads. The one thing I did change for this year is, so last year I was shooting the X Impact, but when I shot my buck, the shaft snapped with about like the back 8 inches or so snapped off. And, talking to Brent, he told me that like the front half is not likely to break. Like, the first 8 inches isn't likely to break, but he's seen the back half snap a lot with just those light GPI arrows. So I sacrificed some FOC this year, and I'm shooting a deep impact instead for just a more robust shaft, because I can shoot them just as well. Yeah. But I don't want my shaft to break. So
you have this bulletproof system, but then you put a skinny arrow on there.
Yeah. So I'm still shooting a micro, but it's like the wall thickness is, I think it's 9 thousandths thicker. Yeah. Which is like holding them side by side. It's a like visual difference. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about the Valkyrie is probably their cult following. That's my biggest snag with Valkyrie.
You're not wrong.
It's like, man, it's like a better informed Zeus following. You know what I'm saying?
But the Valkyries actually work.
Except the Valkyrie actually was a good choice. Yeah. And I don't mean to bash on anybody there, but like when we were testing and everything,
you can blame it on us. It's fine.
It just, I don't know. Like we were doing some testing and I just had some guys being silly. Like, why aren't you testing the one of them's local to you? And just I'm like, well, we're testing arrow or broadheads, not arrow component systems. So that would be why. and he's, I don't know.
They got all upset. They got all upset that you weren't testing the Valkyrie system.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
you just testing the head wasn't good enough.
You were using the Day 6 system with the Blood Eagle, right?
We were. Yeah.
So that's a good system to screw the Blood Eagle onto.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. It's just people get so blue team, red team, tribal with you get tribal with anything. It could be a soccer team to a broadhead to whatever, and I just don't fall into those traps. I'm on team tribal. What works, I guess,
Yep.
And Valkyrie works. It's a good head, great material.
Yep.
Like you said, the shafts might be the weak link in that. What they come with, the lighter GPI shaft.
There's workarounds for it though, for sure.
Yeah. So what are the ones that you guys are steering people clear of? Because we joke around about the Zeus and they did penetrate a lot better than a lot of the mechanicals, but that's because the Zeus isn't really a mechanical. It's a
It's a mechanical that's not a mechanical.
it's almost in a realm of its own because it's the only one I know of that has freaking springs in it.
The
veteran does.
Veteran has
Yeah.
springs too.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yep.
Yeah, but the veteran is actually mechanical. It stays closed in flight, opens when it impacts. The Zeus is the opposite.
Yeah.
Stays open in flight,
Right.
and closes on impact. If it hits hard.
It's honestly, those two are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I guess that's where there was also some shade being thrown around between
There
those
was
two
there was
companies.
serious shade happening when that released.
But the veteran is
the
essentially a fixed
Zeus
head.
is what you're talking about. What
Yeah,
do you mean
Zeus
by
is
shade?
Zeus and veteran.
We're getting in a pissing match or something.
Yeah, because
people
of
who were
design.
involved. Yeah, people who were involved with both companies or individuals who one were involved with Zeus, one were involved with Veteran, were upset with each other, I guess you could say.
That happens a lot in the
Yeah.
broadhead industry.
More than you would think.
Yeah. And the more I start sticking my head up out of the sand, it's like, okay, that guy's pissed off at that guy because he
Catch
stole
some
this.
flack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Jesus.
It's funny
bunch
because
of schoolgirls.
like, for one, so many people have no idea what patents are actually out there. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
like these companies that have been around for eons have just hundreds of patents that they've never brought to market. And so you're looking
Yeah.
at something going, oh man, no one's ever done this before.
No one's done this.
And
Yeah,
you
someone
go
owns it.
out
Yep.
and
Get sued.
you submit
Yep.
you know
Pay royalties.
for your patent and you start selling stuff and then all of a sudden you find out that oh that's someone else's design. They've already done that. And now if that company wants to really throw its weight around, it's going to go, okay, either you stop or you pay us.
Right.
That's why I always laugh with all the new bow designs coming out. Is like Darton owns so many of the patents.
Yep.
Like,
I was gonna say, Dart,
the Evolve
Dart
Cam-
doesn't need to make bows anymore.
No,
They don't.
no.
They don't even they don't market anything. They're just like, yeah, we're living well off of these royalties.
Pretty
but
much.
The
Thanks,
Evolve
everybody.
Cam is the same cam system minus the high let off as the DS cam or whatever. And then
know that.
Matthews is similar with their
Yep.
floating yoke or whatever. That
Yeah,
would be
so
called.
they own the yoke system that Matthew uses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Like if you start looking, like you start finding the
Hoyt
oh,
uses
this
some
was
of their
taken from
patents,
here,
yeah.
this was taken from here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, same thing with broadheads. There's how long a broadhead's been around, and like you can only get a certain certain shapes are only going to be made into broadheads because that's how the certain angles and everything. That's how they work.
Yep.
Right.
So
Right.
you look at a tooth of the arrow and a slick trick. They're very similar in blade angle and all that, but one's machined out of straight metal,
Right.
and
Yep.
the other one is replaceable blades.
Yeah.
I guess sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was gonna.
I was going to say
segue.
to answer your question for like what we steer people away from. I think that was the original question.
Yeah,
we
right.
went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Sorry, we're turning it into our podcast.
Said
which
Zeus,
is
and
nothing-
everybody saw black.
nothing but my rabbit holes. We really just try and steer people away from broadheads that we think are going to break or have a higher probability of breaking. To be honest, like whether you shoot. I guess apparently a lot of people think that we are just like Ashbyites, like 650, 19%, like 3-to-1 ratios, and if you don't do those three things, like you shouldn't even go to the woods. When
Don't
that's
forget about a single bevel now.
yeah, and single bevel, when like that's not true. Really, we are, like you said, like we're team what works and what works often. And like I guess when we start steering people away from things, there are very, 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 very few mechanicals that we are even like comfortable with saying like you could do this, I guess.
Maybe.
And then when we talk about those mechanicals, they're typically not super wide opening mechanicals. Are like 1.5 to 1.75 inches, and at that point you can shoot a fixed blade that's that big, and it's not like a really big deal. So I don't know. We're I guess we steer people away from stuff that'll break, stuff that's low quality steel that won't hold an edge well. Yeah, I mean we just don't want stuff to break. That's really it. Because if you look at when you
integrity is our main focus. Like
when
you look at the Valkyrie system, you look at how Rob builds like Rob and both Matt shoot grizzly stick arrows, so that's a good
No,
set.
I don't.
No, you don't?
No,
You did have TDTs.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do have TDTs, but I'm not hunting with them. I am using another tapered arrow that I can't.
We can't talk
say,
about that.
I can't say too much about it. But,
Anyways, but like the main thing is our main focus is things that don't break, and when you make something that is gonna not break, it ends up being heavy, and you usually end up having a fair amount of FOC.
Yeah,
Right.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah, the best way, I read it, somebody made this comment the other day, and after reading it, I'm like, I'm going to steal that and use it. But, building a really good arrow in component system or putting it together, FOC is basically just a result of that.
It's a byproduct.
not something
It's just
people
a
are shooting
byproduct.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, byproduct. And after thinking about my setups, it's like, that is absolutely 100% true with my experience. And I get guys, and I've said this a few times on my podcast, I get guys messaging me, am I ethical? I'm using this. I'm worried about going out with and not being ethical with my FOC. It's like, am I partially responsible for having this conversation? Am I in any way, shape, or form making people feel unethical? And I think there's been a lot of podcasts that talk about FOC, but, I went out and killed stuff without measuring FOC for a lot of years. I've gotten pass-throughs on 99% of the things I've killed. I can't think of when's the last thing I didn't pass through that I didn't. I mean, we 410 grain arrows going 260 long time ago. That's as fast as I could shoot. That was an Axis with a 100 grain head, 16 grain insert, right?
Yep. You're probably 8%.
Yeah, I was I think just over 8% is where I was at. And even, I don't care, people know. I was shooting out, deer out to 72 yards, getting pass-throughs, and my arrow was sticking in the dirt on the opposite side. And that's with, that's a long time ago, but that's with shooting 20 to 25 feet per second slower, and that's with a 6% less FOC, 7% less FOC that I'm shooting currently. It's like, how into the weeds and how, I don't know. I guess I'm struggling with promoting certain. I don't really promote. Like you guys said, I promote what works, but I'm finding that I'm getting really good arrow flight with a 14% FOC, and I shouldn't say this. I've never.
There's nothing saying you can't have good arrow flight, regardless.
Yeah, I've had good arrow flight with 5% FOC.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know, man.
Now,
So for we talk about. Sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess what I was going to say is, like, we all know. I guess I would think that we all know that pretty much any arrow can and has worked.
Yep.
Any broadhead that's on the market has worked. There's a reason that someone thinks that it's the next best thing, is that they saw it work and they went, wow, this is great. Now, for me, it's a matter of probabilities. I know that, like, say for whitetail, I know that a 400 grain arrow with whatever broadhead at whatever low FOC can and does kill stuff every year. But I also know that there's a lot of failures with those setups if the shot doesn't go exactly as planned. So as you try and, I guess, improve your odds, stack the deck in your favor,
mitigate the risks. Yeah,
you're going to start looking at certain things to guide those improvements, right? Where I think a lot of people get hung up is, like, if we look at like the 12 factors, you have these benchmarks for, hey, if you hit this number, this is the percent increase that was documented throughout the testing. If you hit this number or you do this was, where there was a significant change. And people get a little hung up on that, and then just find focus on I have to hit this. Like, if I don't hit that number, then it doesn't, then I didn't, succeed. And
that's where I can see a lot of guys get, like, that's where we start to get pushback too, is like,
yeah,
the guys are like, well, I shot light arrows forever, and
yeah,
like you said, I've only not had a pass through that one deer that I lost, and then another one with all the mechanicals that I shot deer with. I didn't have a pass through other than 2, and one was because I skewered both shoulder blades,
and
with a 350 grain arrow. It poked out the other side, but like,
it will work and it will be successful until it isn't.
Right. That's what I always say too.
And
that's like, it'll work until it doesn't.
And
I
for a
don't
lot of guys,
find that. Yeah.
If it's working, why fix what isn't broken? That's the mentality. Now, some people want to make a change because they see the writing on the wall and they're like, it's just a matter of time before either I make a mistake or that animal does something I'm not expecting. But the thing that I stress to a lot of people that I deal with is that improvement is improvement. I don't, in the back of my head, am I thinking about some of those numbers and where we might want to be for different animals? Yes, 100%. But I'm, what I'm telling to people and what, we're focusing on is, okay, where are you at right now? And now let's go, okay, what if we just did a more efficient broadhead? Going from something with a 0.5 mechanical advantage to something with a 2 mechanical advantage can
400% increase.
Right? It's a significant change in how your force is being utilized. So at that point, you don't necessarily need to change your arrow weight, your front of center, anything. But by simply changing the broadhead and utilizing the force that you have in a more efficient manner, you can see drastically better results. Right. And that typically just leads to a cascade of guys getting curious and going, okay, well, if that worked that well, what about a little more weight? What about a little bit of this? And next thing you know, it's like what we do, where we go, okay, this is the broadhead that I want. I want a tough component to pair it with. And now I want a tough shaft that complements, the rest of it. And then you look at the numbers, you go, oh, look at that. I have a heavy arrow and I have good front of center.
Yep.
It's like, okay, cool. Like, you start at the front, you focus on integrity, and it all kind of cascades from there. It's...
I think that, at least for me, the whole FOC argument for why would I use more FOC when what I've been using works. Well, first off, like Rob said, like if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, keep doing it. And typically, the people who have a lot of pass-throughs with lower front of center, if you look at the common denominator, there's normally a good amount of skill there, and those guys are typically pretty good shots.
Yeah.
But to me, it all comes down to percentages. And even if you look at Dr. Ashby's studies, if you actually dig into them, Dr. Ashby had a lot of penetration success with lighter arrows, but when he started shooting heavier arrows and finding heavier front and center and the 650 grain threshold and stuff like that, the percentages on being able to breach that heavy bone skyrocketed. So even within his own studies, he shows like, yeah, this can definitely be done with lighter arrows.
Yeah.
It's just a lower chance of it happening.
Well, and that's a lot of
and-
them. It was simply a matter of, if we were in this lighter set, you have less than 50% or near 50% rate of breach and lethal penetration. Whereas if you do this, you're near 100. So it's like, well, I mean, how many times can you flip a coin and get the right answer?
Right.
Some people just have that luck.
Yep.
And they sit there and keep flipping and flipping and flipping, and it's always heads. And sooner or later, that ratio is going to play out, right?
Right.
It's not that it doesn't work. It's
My thing with the whole Ashby thing is that, number one, it was done with trad stuff, and so we're
He used that's another thing. He used compounds and crossbows as well.
He did, but I think he started focusing more on, and I could be wrong, but he was getting pass-throughs on everything with the compounds and the trads, wasn't he? And then so he started noticing because you're magnifying the differences because you're using a weaker setup with the trad. So he started focusing on that.
well,
Is that
he
wrong?
started with trad because that's what was predominant
That's what he
back
shot.
in the 80s,
Yeah.
right?
But on everything he was shooting, he was getting pass-throughs with the compounds and the crossbows.
towards
unless I'm-
towards the later studies, like the 2008 report, because of how fine-tuned the builds were getting. I mean, the further you go down this rabbit hole, the more that you start locking in for factors, where you're like, towards 2008, he was focusing on EFOC, UFOC, and so he was running, 650 grain arrows. He had the integrity figured out. He was utilizing the same high efficiency broadheads, and now he's playing with varying levels of extreme and ultra front of center. And
Right.
so he's fine tuning, okay, how does this affect things? Is there more gain? Is there any other big changes? And so he's using the most effective setup that he's ever built and now fine tuning it.
Okay.
And at that point, yes, on big game, he was seeing broadhead pass through. Now, with the type of data that he was collecting, if that broadhead exits the body, and that's pass through is not saying the arrow passed through. If the broadhead exits the body, that's lost data. Because
Right.
he was tracking the depth, the duration of penetration. And so that maximizes at the maximum width of the animal. If I have something that went further than the maximum width, now I don't know what that value is. Right. And so at that point, he started turning back. And that's where, like, in like the last part of the 2008 updates, he was like playing around with, okay, I'm going to take a 40-pound longbow and then I'm going to take an 80-pound longbow. And I want to see what the difference is to, look at the argument of you need to shoot this high energy bow. Right. But beyond 2008, the last, 11 years,
11 years. Yeah.
that has primarily been compounds and crossbows.
Yep. And there's been what do they have on their current? I mean, I'm not giving exact numbers, but I think they've got over 1,500 animals, 1,800 animals.
I want to say it's
on their-
somewhere between 15 and 2,000.
animals on their current database. The Ashby Bow Hunting Foundation has been keeping track of, and they have basically all but reconcluded, I guess, that Doc was right the first time.
Oh, really?
That nothing
Okay.
has changed. With,
Nothing's changed. Yeah.
You know, the bows.
Because it's time of impulse, and I won't get like super into it, but it's basically the amount of and once again, not saying you have to shoot 650 grains to be successful, but or like a super high front of center to be successful, but the heavy bone threshold. So basically, what has to happen is when you press on a bone. Man, I hate podcasts because they can't see the video that I'm doing. When you press on a bone, it has to have enough energy, enough mass behind it to push on it for a certain amount of time of impulse before it breaks. And so if people want to look up time of impulse, then he does a way better job of explaining that than I do.
Essentially, mass is your conservation factor. So if you've
Right.
got X force, the more mass you have, the longer that it's preserved,
Pushing, yeah.
and the less force that is being shed while you're under resistance. And so once you hit a hard object, you need to have enough conservation of force to overcome any of the flex, any of the movements. So like on a bone, you have to take up any of the muscle slack, any of the tendon slack, the flex of the bone, and now you can finally try and push through it. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
it's like, picture standing on a trampoline and you take a bowling ball and a basketball and you drop both. The bowling ball is going to continue pressing on that trampoline and exerting its force longer before it rebounds. The basketball is going to push a little bit and then just come right back up. And
That's a good way of looking at it.
It's how the mass is affecting the duration that the force can be applied. But it's not saying that a light arrow can't breach. It's,
Right.
that 650, like Matt said before, is simply a consistency factor of looking at, if you have 19%, if you have a near 3-to-1 head, if you're around 650 or more, if your flight is perfect, nothing breaks, then you have a near 100% chance of breaching bone. Mm-hmm. Now, the majority of guys aren't hitting all of those, right? They're flexing on certain things. And so
I'm not hitting all those.
yeah, and
Not
that's
close.
I mean, we all have little variations, and I mean, depending on how OCD you are with flight and tuning and everything else, there's a lot of other factors at play. I mean, wind can affect your flight. If you have a big gust of wind and the arrow doesn't hit square, guess what? I don't care what the arrow is, it's
Right.
not going to perform the same way.
Yep.
And so it's just, I mean, like what we normally kind of fall back on is shoot the toughest, heaviest system that you're comfortable with. That's like, I mean, Garrett, like or I guess Garrett 2, like what you're running is, as heavy as you are comfortable for the ranges that you're planning to hunt. Right?
What was your setup, Garrett?
It's around 550.
550.
So, but I have to chrono my bow still, but I'm somewhere 270, 275, I think, with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and that's
but
like,
I like to stay above 265 just because I'm familiar with that 265 to 280 trajectory.
you're comfortable
Yeah.
with it.
See, that's where I'm at. Is 280, 285.
Yeah.
Been hunting with it for so many years. I know where to aim. I know how to compensate. I know
Right.
what the wind's going to do to my arrow. I know everything about the trajectory of that arrow because I've shot it for so long. I mean,
And it can be a big change trying to go to a different setup.
that's my biggest.
Hurdle. And it's honestly, when you've been running the same thing for years, you need a reason to change. Like
Right.
either that reason is going to be failure, or it's going to be outside of the norm animal that dictates you change it, and now you reevaluate and you force yourself to become comfortable to be confident for that animal. right? I mean, like my 950 build, I'm comfortable. I mean, I've shot that at 3D tournaments, and I've shot that out to 80, 90 yards alongside guys shooting 400 grain arrows, and I'm fine with it. Now, if I went out west, would that be my perfect setup? Probably not. I would probably try and figure out something that was, somewhere closer to like 700 that was still as tough as I want, but would tighten things up so that I could be more on the fly between like 35 and 60 or 70. Like, I'm still, even with my setup, I'm very comfortable at those ranges, but I wouldn't have a lot of loss performance-wise. I guess I would just be getting a little bit more comfortable for expected longer ranges, right? And like if I was going to go after like antelope, I would probably use a different setup just because they're skittish tiny little buggers that you don't know when or where your opportunity is going to be. And it's not a big animal, so I'm not stressing about the weight, right? It's, I mean, I could take my 500 grain 3D build, slap a broadhead on it, and I could go out and do, great with that. But just like you said, it's where you're comfortable. I've been around 230 to 240 feet per second since I started shooting for hunting. Like, I've played around faster for 3D, but hunting, I've always been in that range. And so when my bow weight started going up and I started getting better and heavier bows, I just kind of naturally kept it in that spot. That's what I know.
Something I found interesting with myself. So for the Northwest Mountain Challenge, I was shooting like a 430 grain arrow. So that would put me at like 310, 315 or something out of my bow. And then for the Eastern Oregon Super Shoot, I switched to my hunting setup because I wanted to see how it would shoot. I couldn't use a rangefinder at the Eastern Oregon shoot. I was using a rangefinder at the, I did both rangefinder and not rangefinder at the Mountain Challenge. But with that lighter setup, I was not near as accurate for I'm assuming it's because I'm more comfortable with that trajectory of the heavier arrow. Like, I shot a 292 through 30 targets at the Eastern Oregon shoot, which is it's not bad for not running a rangefinder.
And you were shooting from open stakes on your hunting rig, right?
Yeah, I was shooting.
That's impressive.
But yeah, so I've shot that weight and that trajectory for 3 years now. So like if I'm off a yard or two, like I know where it's going to be off. Like if my guess is off a yard or two, I know where, it's like, oh, that must have actually been 35 instead of 37 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like depending on where I hit, like it's like, oh, I misjudged that one. And a lot of the time I judge long for whatever reason. Like I just need to start shooting shorter than what I guess first because I usually judge long. But
speaking of
something I found interesting.
Watch this segue. Speaking of lighter arrows and Garrett.
Yes.
Tim Gillingham.
Here we are.
I was wanting to go over this because you guys had an interesting conversation on one of these Facebook forums, and Tim's a very renowned, very outspoken archer.
Yes. Very talented shooter.
Yes. Very talented shooter, very well known. And you guys are on opposite ends of the fence there. And someday I'd love to just talk to him about light arrow setups, but I have a guy here locally that's on the same mind as Tim Gillingham. Very awesome hunter, great hunter, very successful. Rosy hunter, even with an extremely light setup, shoots very far. And he gets it done. However, both these guys are extremely good shots, better than 99 guys out of 100. They're going to they're going to beat them.
for sure.
That's the part that I think people forget about. And I think, I mean, I have as much respect for Tim as I can, but I think that's the part that, like, it's like Jeff Bezos trying to tell somebody that makes 25 grand a year how to budget. Like, he's so far removed from that world that's not
good
possible.
Analogy. Well, talk to me and give a paraphrase what the conversation was and where you guys differed, because I love hearing different mindsets, and I don't get two shits what other people do. I just want them to do the best thing for them. So, because he's on one end of the spectrum that we are not talking about on this podcast. We've been talking pretty heavy, high FOC.
Yeah.
Give the paraphrased and kind of go over that real quick, because I love hearing different mindsets here, and you guys obviously talked at pretty good length
So
about arrows and stuff.
We can do that.
Yeah.
So his
And while you're doing that, give me 1 second with my dogs here.
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So to paraphrase, his argument is usually that the average hunter should shoot a lighter setup in case they range something wrong. Maybe I should re-say that. Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, try it again now.
I'll say it again. So for Tim, his main argument is that the average hunter archer should shoot a lighter setup in case they miss range, and that way they are going to they'll have more forgiveness if they guess their yardage wrong. But his main gripe about people that shoot heavy arrows is that heavy arrows in high FOC is that we're preparing to miss. But on the same hand, he will say that someone should shoot a light arrow and mechanical because it's going to be more forgiving for a shot towards the rear, and it's more forgiving in case they range, like if they guess their range is wrong. But that's the same thing on different ends of the spectrum. Like, that's both preparing to miss in
That's a good point.
different ways.
That's a good point.
So well, Tim and I are really good friends. In case you didn't know,
I genuinely like him, and I have learned a lot of things from him. When he said, like, he'll say things, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense because what about this?
I've heard that when I'm not really one to keep up with the like 3D with the professional circuit, but I've heard that like when he goes to shoots, like he has. You want to talk about spreadsheets? Like I guess his like cut card or whatever you want to call it that tells you your cuts for your different angles is just like it out of control. So I'm sure he's an extremely OCD guy when it comes to stuff like that. But I think where Tim might be removed on top of being an incredible shot is he has a 33-inch draw length.
Yeah.
So and this presents two problems. One, if Tim ever wanted to shoot. I don't think Tim has probably ever shot like truly high front of center arrows because
with a good reaction.
Yes, with a well-tuned reaction or with a good reaction or proper reaction, because you basically need the most full-length arrows that you can. I mean, he probably needs at least full-length arrows on his draw length if he's not shooting like some crazy overdraw.
I was say why not just shoot an overdraw, but
yeah. And
he does shoot an overdraw, which he wouldn't be able to shoot in Oregon. Fun fact.
Even overdraws are illegal for Ed to hunt in Oregon?
Last time I checked.
I didn't know that.
I didn't.
Huh. Well, I don't ever have to worry about that.
My T-Rex arms.
Yeah, I saw this T-shirt the other day that said it was a short arms instructor, and it had a T-Rex, and he was just waving.
That's funny. But I don't, because Tim has talked about. I think he said he like tried to build a high front of center arrow, and if I'm remembering the conversation correctly, it seemed like it would have been way too weak for what he was trying to do, and it's like, well, of course
he was saying that it didn't group well, it wasn't flying well, and it's like, well, you had it on way too weak of a spot, and knowing what his bows are, it's like that.
That would be like it would be the equivalent.
You just load it
up
the front of your normal arrow.
Like, I tried to throw 200 grains on the front of a 400 and shoot it out of a 70-pound bow. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Right. So, and I think the second part that that just like disconnects him from it is he wants speed, and there, you can certainly, I think you're G-dub, you're a good testament to that you can find a mix of speed and good front of center. You're shooting 280 plus and you're encroaching on 15%. But for him to get high front of center, his speed would have to drop considerably because the GPI on his shafts would skyrocket because he would have to shoot a 200 spine, 150, 170 spine arrow, which would add a minimum of 50 to 100 grains probably just on the shaft.
Right.
So I think like I said, I don't have anything against him until he starts telling people that things can't be done or shouldn't be done when we have people that do them and we do them ourselves all the time. But like I said, I think he just has a disconnect because he is a physical freak in a good way, and it's just difficult for him to do that. And if I had a 33-inch draw length, I probably wouldn't be shooting super high front of center either because I have a lot of ass behind that arrow. So whatever.
Yeah.
Also, I do agree with his main argument of the thing that kind of set me off on one of the posts the other day was that it was a guy specifically asking about FOC. He wanted specific answers. And the answer that he was given was just slap a 100 grain head on it and go shoot. And then he kept saying, regurgitating the same thing of, well, you just need to shoot better first. It's like, well, yes, you do need to be able to shoot well. And for a lot of people, in a lot of situations, a heavier arrow and FOC and whatever broadhead you want, it's not going to matter, provided you hit your spot that you need to. But if you don't, and once that arrow leaves your bow, you're no longer in control. So,
right.
Well, and one thing that
save yourself somewhere.
I wanted to point out is a big thing that not just Tim, but a lot of guys fall back on is, you need to shoot, practice more. You need to, make a better shot. And from, I guess, what I've seen personally, and the data that Sean, right, from Cali Chronicles, Shane.
Shane
Shane
Simpson.
I mean, the majority of stuff that he had data on was lethal placement.
Yep.
There was just a lack of penetration. So
what did he say? He said 90. I
was
could
trying
be
to
paraphrasing
remember
here. I'm pretty sure he said 90% of the tracks that he went on that the arrow entered somewhere into the thoracic cavity.
Yeah.
Which, if you get an arrow in there, that animal should probably die.
Right.
But 90% of those calls that he was on, they needed a tracking dog. So,
and I mean that's the pigs that we were shooting, testing those broadheads. I mean, we had guy's a sharpshooter. The only guy that wasn't running our type of setup. He was kind of our potential control in our little test environment, but he pinwheeled this 285 pound pig, just perfect, slight quarter away, just pinwheeled. If that arrow had penetrated, it would have just sliced that heart apart. He got 3.5, 4 inches.
Did he not get through that little armor plating they have on that side?
And
there,
that's
or what?
these pigs didn't even have shields.
Oh,
They were
really?
Big old farm pigs.
Oh, oh, is that hunt?
Yeah.
that's that hunt.
Okay, yeah.
But even on that, so it didn't have a shield, but you have a decent thickness of skin. You had on most of those pigs, you had upwards of an inch of hard fat. And then you had a layer of muscle, and then you had these big, thick ribs. He made a perfect shot, and he was tickling the onside lung. and that's granted that was a 3-blade Rage, so a very inefficient head.
Right.
But it's not the only time that I've seen something like that, and it's not the only time I've had someone tell me that I made a perfect shot. Like we had it on camera. I can see where the hole's at. Like it's still running around. It's got a hole right where you want to hit it.
Yeah. Well, it's like that. The hogs are freaking tough. I shot my first hog a couple weeks ago, and it was like, how are you still going? Like, how? Like, what is going on here? Yeah. Yeah. Bob shot one through the, I want to say it was like the spleen. It destroyed the liver, got the back of the offside lung, and that sucker went uphill like 200, 250 yards, and then just tipped over. I was like, what the hell? Straight uphill. No side hill, just boom, uphill. And then
good old death run, but went uphill.
Dude, it was insane. I was like, what in the heck is going on here? And the pig didn't bleed that much either. But I was like, what in the hell? It's kind of scared because I lost a hog before that. And I thought I'd smacked it right in the heart, but I think if it was an inch away, I'd be shocked from the heart. I mean, it was right there. It looked like a heart shot, and then he just kept going and going and going. And then I think I was just low of the heart.
Yeah.
But that was a heartbreaker. But that's on that freaking goddamn Bowtech that exploded on me multiple times. And I was talking to a buddy of it. I'm like, I was getting some pretty weird sporadic arrow flight. And before I left, I tuned the bow myself, and I had broadheads and field points touching. Granted, they were only at 20 yards, but they were like just literally shaft to shaft. Lucky I didn't shave a vein off. And I get out there, and I know I've told this story already. I'm getting them on my soapbox again. But I get out there, and then
it's okay. You said shaft to shaft, which
shaft
is going to be a great drop for us.
That could be the title of the podcast too, right?
Shaft to shaft.
Yeah. Instead of doing collaboration video or collaboration podcast, we're going to
shaft to shaft podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I was getting just horrible broadhead flight. I'd be at 60 yards, I'd be a foot low, and 70, I'd be a foot high, and I'm like, I was getting 40 to 50 yard groups using 4 to 5 different broadheads. Just different broadheads, and then I'd hold groups pretty damn well out to that range. And so I was like, I just need to get the bow back to where it was. And then apparently I didn't. But I was talking to my buddy, and he's like, well, those limbs failed right after that hunt. And he's like, what if they were changing throughout that hunt? What if those limbs were getting just different deflection throughout that hunt, and then that was just throwing you off? I'm like,
sounds plausible.
Very possible, because that hog I did kill, I barely hit. I didn't make it inside the thoracic cavity, where the hell you call it. I didn't make it inside the sweet zone, and it went through the brisket and died.
Yeah, you said you thought it had a heart attack.
I swear to God, I think that's what happened.
It to death.
I think we scared it to death. Yeah. I think I left off. Sorry, we had to all take a pee break. So I think I left off talking about maybe the deflection of the limbs was changing or something, or because it splintered pretty soon after the long story short, it was splintered within 100 shots of the hunt. I mean, pretty easily, probably within 50 shots of the hunt. So I'm not making excuses, but Austin, my buddy Austin, Garrett knows Austin. He was talking about that. Yeah, Kincaid. I'm like, that could be it. And
it would make sense, man. I mean, if your deflection changes even a little bit, you've not only is your the bow casting the arrow differently, you're getting a different dynamic reaction out of the arrow.
Well, the way he was explaining it was like, it just didn't randomly happen. He's like, there was shit leading up to that, to where that limb was remembering being stressed at that point, and he thinks it's multiple things that are making the limbs go bad, and I think he's probably right. It has to do with the rockers and a bunch of other things, and just the angles, and I don't know. He's much more of a technical guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the way he was describing him, like, that's very possible, because those arrows were freaking just smoking the bullseye at 40, 50 yards with whatever broadhead I threw on there. It didn't matter. And so long story short, I guess we can get into this because I haven't even talked about it. No one really even knows on my end about me getting the new bow and stuff. If you guys want to get into this shit. So.
Go for it, man.
So I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. You guys can all make your own judgments. And I kept it very, very nice because I didn't know if it was my fault or not. I was told it was. But long story short, I had the bow, and the top cam started hitting a little slow. So I'm like, what the hell? I was chasing my arrow, and I'm like, okay, so something's going on. And so I'm like, I bet the timing's off or something. So the top cam, I think, was out of time or something. One of the cams was out of time. So I put it in the press. I was gonna change it, and being really, really kind of a big pussy about pressing it because I'm not, I wouldn't say very experienced. I'm learning how to press the bows and stuff, right? I anything besides pressing a bow and doing string stuff, I can do any other maintenance or tuning. Period. That's why I've gotten good at the tuning aspects because I don't have a press, so I've had to really figure out all this shit on my own. But
Right.
And so now I'm learning how to do all this stuff, being super ginger about it, and got it perfectly inside the press. It's an approved press. Press it, and then I'm getting to the point where I'm checking to see if I can get the cables off the posts. Can't really do it yet. Press it a little farther, and then pop, pop. I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, this is not good here. I've already replaced limbs on here. And by the way, the limb splintered prior to that. So the new solid
the
core,
limb splintered and then the thing?
the limb
or-
splintered after the hunt,
Oh, okay.
prior to me putting it in the press.
I gotcha.
So I already had a new set of limbs, T38s. Mike had set up aside for me at the pro shop, and these are the in-house factory or the in-house laminated limbs. These aren't the solid core ones. And he said these ones were much better than the solid core ones from his experience. And so, long story short, I'm messing with this bow knowing that I'm probably just going to replace the limbs here soon anyways. And it goes pop, pop. So I undo it. And then I'm like pulling it back just a little bit just to see if I can get anything. And then I kind of feel this click, click. I'm back about 3 or 4 inches on the draw. Just a little click, click. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to draw this cocksucker back. I'm going to put it in the draw board. And so now my Bowtech's watching me at this point, and he just had his thumb ripped open and broken in 2 spots by a Destroyer 350 that was in a draw board, and which blew up on him. And so he's standing like 10 feet back. The guy working on the bike is like hiding behind the spokes of his bike, and he's watching me, and I'm like this. I'm like gingerly working the draw board back, and I get it back to about probably halfway, and then it just explodes on me. And I'm like, shit, I just blew up my bow. I'm like, it had to be something I did. I'm a freaking idiot. And the cam levers, one of the cam levers broke exactly where the screw goes in. So basically it split the threads in half. So you had one side of the threads here and 2 perfect half moons, right? That's exactly where it split. The cam lever is the part of the cam that actually mounts the cam onto the limb. If for guys that are wondering, that's the function.
Bowtech has their, what is that? The overdrive cam.
Overdrive binary.
That's how
Overdrive
That's how
binary.
this stuff attaches to the limb.
Yeah, it's
Instead of all the other bows, they've got an axle that runs through the limb.
Yeah,
it's
and
got
this
a
has
pillow-
a kind of a it's
pillow
kind of
block or
a it's got
whatever.
a skinny part, and then it kind of gets into a big fatter part, and that's kind of where you're pressing it and you're putting it in the fingers of the press there.
Yeah.
And it I'll be damned, it freaking broke right there on one of the cam levers, and so I immediately get on the phone with my buddy Corey Miller, and I order a Evoke 31. And so
I do not blame you.
So yeah, I'm like, I'm done with this thing, and then I get a hold of Bowtech, and they're like, okay, we'll take care of you. You know, it sounds like you pressed it wrong, but we'll take care of you. We'll make sure we get you out the door, and
Oh, gee, thanks.
yeah, we'll take care of you. So, I've heard that has been a possibility that I pressed it wrong or I pressed it too far. I know I didn't press it too far. So possible that I pressed it wrong, even though by everybody that I've talked to and showed how I pressed it said no.
Secret time,
Bowtech,
you didn't.
yeah. The another thing is that from other guys that I've talked to says the cam levers could have been over tightened, and that's causes a little too much stress on them, and that's where they break. Is exactly where it did if you over tighten them. But Bowtech says that's exactly where it breaks if you press it wrong. So.
Convenient.
We'll see. So long story short, Bowtech took really good care of me. They gave me new strings and new limbs, mounted them all and everything, and sent me on my way. So I basically, outside of the cams and everything there, the cam and the riser is the only old part of the bow. Everything else is brand new rockers and everything.
Yeah. Well, man, I really think Bowtech is like top of the pile right now, if you're asking me. But I think Bowtech. God forbid I would have said this 5 years ago. I think PSE is like a top 3 bow manufacturer right now.
Yeah.
Dude, the
PSE makes
Well,
some phenomenal stuff.
Bowtech,
I mean,
both
honestly,
Bowtech and
Yeah.
PSE 5 years ago, it was Full Shoot Explode and Blowtech.
yeah.
Well, people are still
Yep.
calling it Blowtech,
making
but
good stuff.
those two companies are pushing the envelope where the other ones are they're not.
That's
Well, the SR6 is one of the
PSE
favorite bows I shot this year, and now they're having issues with the roller bearings,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
having another problem with some sort of pin in the cams. And man, they need to figure their shit out. I am straight
Yeah.
up not happy because I suggested the SR6 to guys based off of when I shot it. I'm like, dude, I really like this bow for a speed bow. It's very shootable. You know, it holds well. Great Valley, very solid back. I just really liked it. And it was between that one and the Evoke 31 for me, only because I hadn't shot the Evoke 34 yet. That probably would have been my top choice. But and then now I'm seeing guys, you know, just replacing bearing after bearing after bearing, and then other problems with them. And then some guys are having tuning issues. It's like, Jesus Christ, you know, what's going on here? Because the guys at the pro shop here in Oregon, they will take care of you. The factory pro shop, they will take care of you, even if it's your fault. They will take care of you. However, it's like a Vortex. You know, they have a great warranty because you're going to freaking need it. So,
Yeah.
in my opinion, and I own Vortex.
I
And
am
Matt, I am
so
ashamed that
sorry.
you're using a Vortex rangefinder. I saw that comment, and I was like,
I love my
Hey, I like my Vortex.
man, all my buddies that
in
have
the
them,
minority,
I
I
can't stand them.
guess.
I
But
guess
yeah,
in 5 years of using my Vortex rangefinder, I have not had a reason to dislike it.
have you used a Leica?
I have not used the Leica.
That's why you haven't disliked
I
it.
was saying, you will throw your Vortex in
You
the
will throw it in
trash.
the garbage.
Nikon, I've used a handful of others, but I have not used Leica.
See, I have a loophole and it hasn't failed me yet, but as soon
The
as it
RX
does, it's getting
1200 or
trashed.
something, or what?
No, I've got the archery one.
Oh,
but
okay, yeah. So
It still reads good to like 800, 900
Man,
yards.
my buddy's Vortex won't range through fog worth of shit. Like, I know a lot of them won't, but his like is horrible. It's slow. You can't see what you're ranging at until it actually shows the range on his. And I've messed with all the settings, and I can't figure out how to get the crosshairs to show up. It ranges, and then it spits the crosshairs out with the yardage. It's like something's funky going on with his rangefinder.
Yeah,
Piece of
that's
shit.
odd.
Yeah. But yeah, it's super slow. I don't know how yours is, Rob, but his is super slow. It doesn't range worth a shit. It's everything you could think of being bad with a rangefinder. His is.
Hey, well,
It's just, yeah.
that's
I also have seen a huge dip in quality for Vortex in like the last 3 years because they used to like almost everything, like all their binos and everything were made in Japan.
Are they
now
really?
They were. They're not now. They're made in China now.
See, Japan's not bad. Japan actually has some.
But
Interesting.
like so, like the older ones, the ones that people don't have problems with,
Yeah.
made in Japan, right on the bottom.
Well, and that's
the stuff
honestly
that people are having issues.
all of my Vortex stuff, aside from one of my rifle scopes, is all probably more than 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, my
I think
binos,
that's-
my rangefinder, my spotting scope. I mean, I guess between my wife and I, we've both been Vortex dealers, so
Yeah.
you know, you get a good price when you're.
They've
a dealer.
got good product. Like their glass, I like. It's just their rangefinders I shit on. Like I just
Yeah.
can't stand their rangefinders. But their glass for the money is
I'm
pretty good. I
I'm
mean, it's
really wanting to play with Maven.
Yeah.
Speaking, Garrett, have you played with your B5s?
Yeah, they are fantastic.
Yeah?
I bought the Maven 18s, the B5
isn't the
18 by
Maven just a
56s.
Brunton or something like that? Or weren't they an old company that just changed names?
They're
Oh,
a subsidiary of Miopta.
Maybe that's what it is.
So-
yeah, okay. That's
Are-
what it is.
Yep.
Yep. Same
So are we
company.
saying that because
Like a
Miopta
Stevens
makes
to a Savage.
the Cabela's Euro Optic line, so is the Cabela's Euro Optic stuff in the Maven the same thing?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Interesting.
It might be like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Like the Cabela stuff is like the doesn't quite pass
would be like the D
Maven,
series,
and then the Maven stuff
Then you
doesn't
got
quite
the-
pass Meopta.
the C
Interesting.
and the D, or
But-
C and the B.
Well,
Yeah.
long story short, shooting the Evoke 31 now. Waiting to get it. I still haven't got it. Season is starting on the 24th this year, Garrett, or 22nd? 24th. 24th.
Yeah.
And so I'll have literally not hardly any time to tune and get used to that bow. So
Good news is,
Are they
won't
running the
explode on
Evolve
them.
cam
Shoot it.
on the Evoke?
yeah. Also, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing
Those
you can
tune
do a
super
ton
easy
to
in
them
my
because
experience
it's
so
all
far.
rock solid. Like it doesn't get out of center.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's. I mean,
I heard a theory about why, and it kind of goes to what Rob was saying and Garrett was saying about the manufacturing, is that Bowtech's really become more popular and they've ramped up here in the last few years. And anytime you
They're a
start
small
producing, the more you start producing,
Mm-hmm.
typically the quality starts going down. Maybe they're cheaping out on some of the components, or they're just
Well-
pushing them out too fast.
and that
They
a
also,
lot
I
of
mean-
times is a bigger part of it is when you have low volume production, I guess you can get away with a lot of inefficiencies because
Yeah.
you have the time to
yeah.
check stuff, right? As the volume ramps up, if you don't reevaluate your processes and your inefficiencies, now those inefficiencies start biting you because you don't have time. And now everything is just
Get it out the door.
you
Get
know,
it out the door.
snapping along and stuff slips through. That's
And if you look at their product, like ever since they came out with their limb pocket style, like they're squeezing every little bit out of that they can. Like they haven't made an 80-pound bow since the CPXL,
I think so.
I think, something like that. And there's a reason for that. Like the limb like it's at max efficiency with 70-pound
Well,
limbs.
Prodigy-
They will not hold together.
Pro-
Yeah, the
Prodigy had
Prodigy
80s.
just
Because I
But they had
dealt with a
tons
couple
of limb
those blow
problems
up.
with those too. Yeah, they had tons of limb problems with those.
Those were
So I
actually
think that's when they.
Unbelievable.
Those are really good shooting bows.
They were.
Yeah.
The Prodigies actually were the last ones that, at least while in the five years or so that I was with that shop, that was the last series that we really saw any issues with, as far as
Yeah.
limbs. As I know that other people have still seen some
Yeah, I've
issues,
seen
but it
a
was
lot of issues with that BTX. Like not just yours,
yeah.
but
I've
yeah,
heard
I've seen
nightmares.
a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
after mine took a dump on me, it was like
Everybody's
I had
like,
this,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's like, yeah, everybody just wanted to get on their soapbox and everything, and so
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to ask you guys a question. So it was a budget bow challenge, right? I don't know what you know
Mm-hmm.
if you know anything about the budget bow challenge, Rob, but it was a $500 budget, and
Okay.
you bought the complete shebang from that included release, broadheads, arrows, sight, everything. For $500, you had zero to start with, and you had to go get everything for a bow setup that you need to go out and hunt.
Okay.
And so I got this everything for $500, and my goal was to hunt with it all year, kill a bunch of shit, hopefully outshoot some guys with some shoots and talk some shit, and
Yep.
just have fun and show people you didn't have to spend $2,400 on a bow and to go out and kill stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
because I don't like where the prices are going. It pisses me off. And I
Yep.
was just at the fair, and we would have spent $40 on fair
Yep.
food
Yep.
if we would have spent $6 a piece on a large drink, which pisses me off.
It's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And the food was shit. And long story short, getting on a soapbox here, did I fail the budget bow challenge since now? Because I don't care. I mean, I kind of look at it like I kind of succeeded. I killed 2 animals with it, but at the same time, I didn't hit the end of the year
Yeah,
mark.
well,
I
I
didn't
mean,
hunt with it all year.
I guess
and
you
it
knowingly
blew up
rolled
on me.
rolled the dice on getting a bow tag.
Say
but
you succeeded.
I can 100%
I did.
tell you
I did.
if I were to do it, I can 100% tell you the bow that I would pick, like E35, 100%.
What would it be?
100%.
I already have one picked out.
Could you get that completely set up?
You can find
Release
you can buy
broadheads,
E35 for
everything.
$300.
I
now.
just
It's-
bought an
it's
E35.
insane.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So
I almost bought one yesterday and I don't need another bow, but it was like $275.
Yeah. So I mean,
I had a guy trying to trade me a Revel, and I ended up telling him no, just because I heard it was kind of more of a target bow, and I'm not looking for that.
yeah,
right now.
it's kind of like their hybrid, but it's more target-esque.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just picked up like a month and a half ago an E35 as my backup and a bow to set up for more competitive purposes again. But I mean, that was, I guess, custom color, custom anodized cams, custom new threads on it, and I got that to my door for $320. Now I could buy a 6-pack of shafts for $60. I can buy some components for $15, and then I buy a pack of broadheads for $50. And
So you're about
I guess that bow
$450
had a rest
close.
on it. It wouldn't be my preferred rest, but
Right.
then at that point, I guess I could just go without a sight.
Yeah, because then you
But
still have to buy a release.
I could find a sight for pretty cheap.
Yeah. And then you still have to have if you want, you still have to have a quiver and a
stabilizer.
stabilizer.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
have
It's
to.
a harder
$500
challenge than what it
is-
sounds like. You don't have to.
It's not much to get
But,
all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a
500
challenge.
is definitely challenging.
Yeah, and I had I wheeled and dealed on that son of a gun. I had a 2-pin Fast Eddie on there.
What?
I had
Yeah, that's a $250.
So, how did you
sight.
manage that?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
So the bow, okay, I'll tell you what the bow
Gee,
originally came with.
Christmas.
It came with an SKB hard case. It came fully loaded. It came with 6 gold tip hunters, 6 muzzies, 3-pack of lighted nocks. It came with a whisker biscuit, stabilizer, and a quiver, which I lost the attachments to. It came with a 2-pin bulletproof spot hog sight, and came with the release. Came ready to hunt, everything for $400.
It only cost
$452 shipped.
It only cost $50 to
So
ship that
I
with
sold-
that SQB case. That's insane. I figured
That's
shipping one of those
steep.
cases would be at least a bill.
those,
Like, at least
those
$100.
normally.
No,
The last
yeah.
time I shipped an SKB with bow and everything in it, it was
Wow.
like $70.
That's pretty good.
yeah, this was $52 and change,
Nice.
$52 and change. And so I traded. Basically, I sold the case for $120, bought
There you go.
the Fast Eddie for $120. Guy gave me a hell of a deal on it, and that's how I got that. And then I ended up just selling the arrows and everything, and gave the broadheads away, gave the lighted nocks away, kept the whisker biscuit, and that's how I ended up with what I was. And
Yeah.
So. But it was hard, and the only part I got stuck with that I absolutely hated was the gosh darn release. It was just a freaking pile of crap. It was
Oh, okay.
which
So
is
this
probably,
makes
in my
sense
opinion,
now because
now it's a
when
priority
you-
for me is having a
when
nice
Garrett
release.
challenged you to the 97-yard shot or whatever, and you were like, "I'm just getting back into this. I'm just getting back into this release."
Yeah,
Okay, it's all
I'm
coming
using a
full
hinge.
circle now.
Yeah,
That makes more
yeah,
sense. now.
yeah. I was all excited, dude. Shooting that hinge, it brought tears to my eyes. It was nice to have a nice surprise shot instead of just like, good God, don't punch it. And I was like, damn it, that one got away from me. And it was just like, it was a mental
Just because
battle. Every shot was a
I've
mental
never
battle
really
to-
shot a hinge. I tried to shoot I don't even know if this is considered a hinge. I tried to shoot a knock to it for a little while, and I wasn't. Okay. So a hinge is a back tension then, right?
Knock 2, it's a thumb
No?
release.
Yeah.
No,
A
Hinge
hinge
is
is
a
a
hinge.
a
hinge.
hinge is a hinge
Okay.
It's just
I
a
don't know
sear.
what the hell.
It's just a.
with a hook.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
It just
I don't-
goes
I
off
don't
a
know what I'm talking
rotation.
about then.
It just.
Yeah.
So a lot of times,
Right.
like if you watch my elbow, what I do is you watch my elbow, it'll kind of pull my hand
Huh.
back, and that's how. There's so many ways to shoot
Yeah.
it. There's. Yeah, I've messed around with relaxing my index finger, holding this one so it kind of pivots
That's
like
my
that.
preference.
Yeah, that for me doing that with the elbow, because if I do the, I have mine pretty hot, and if I relax my index finger too much, my peep starts going up. a little
Yeah,
bit.
and that's the trick is finding the right level of tension. And I guess like mine, because I do this with, I have a backspin, and I have a stand thumb release, the SX3, and it's like my SX3 that I hunt with. I have pretty much set up to like 0 travel, but fairly cold, so it's heavy.
Oh.
And so that's once I'm anchored, I wrap my thumb, I get a steady pressure, and then I just slightly start letting my hand kind of relax, and it pops.
That's how I shoot
You know,
a thumb release is
and
relaxing.
It's super consistent for me like that, with no punchiness, I'm not thinking about activating. It's, but it's kind of a combination. If I do too much like true pull through, I expand too much. I throw. I struggled with that for like a year trying to get into back tension. I just like everything.
I
was
get
just
it. There's
throwing.
I get it. I mean, honestly, the hinge has been such a game changer for me. There's been a few things in my archery journey that have taken me to the next level.
Yep.
The Halon 6 was my first nice bow. That took me to the next level because I shot, I think it was 18. And if you guys are wondering how I came up with this number, I tracked it. About 18 to 20,000 shots, because towards the end I quit tracking it. 18 to 20,000 shots starting on January 24th to the beginning of hunting season, which was that August. And that was the year that I also tried shooting for the record, longest shot and everything. So,
did you see some dude just made 500 yards today?
What? I didn't see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was shooting 330, and it was all I could do to. Yeah, I mean, there's an old dude online shooting from the hip. Shooting a bow from the hip.
There's a guy that, he shot 500 yards.
Accurately?
He hit one of the big Bosu balls, like the full Bosu ball thing, like the exercise ball.
See, in order to actually break the record, you have to submit for permission, basically. You have to let them know. You have to have news coverage. You have to have signed, sworn statements, and then you have 3 chances to beat it after you make the official attempt. So I practiced, and not to get on a rabbit hole here, but I was hitting it average 1 shot on target the first or the 3 previous groups before that. And then I announced it. As soon as I fucking announced it, the wind started blowing pretty good. And they're like, you want to reschedule? And I'm like, I got like 15 people here. I got the news camera right over there, the new girl right there. And we're going to do it. We're just going to force it.
You silly? I'm just going to send it.
I'm just going to send it. Yeah. I was that meme. And I missed it on my last arrow by a foot. I mean, it was
man.
Yeah, both of them were in line, but short. And then I'm like, okay, I know right where to aim. Boom. And then that wind picked up, and it just carried my arrow probably another 3 feet to the right. And it's a big target. It's a 42-inch target.
Yeah.
Which I think they should change that. It should be
One
MOA,
MOA.
in my opinion. But so, anyways, that's where I'm at now. And, so we'll see. That's
I never had.
Huge,
well, man,
huge thing. If you haven't
maybe,
shot with a hinge,
like I said,
man,
I guess all I've shot is thumb release, but I threw my Wise Guy in the drawer because I knew it was going to take some getting used to, and I shot and I shot and I shot, and like I shot okay, like if I didn't shoot horrible, and one day I was like, let me get out the Wise Guy again. And I just absolutely destroyed groups at like 50, 60 yards. And I was like, I can't. Yeah, I'm like, I can't ask for more than
You're like,
this.
hello, old friend.
And so yeah, I sold that knock to it to some kid at Shields. So
yeah. Well, I got back before my bow exploded, which has been a common statement I've been saying way too much lately, because it's been multiple times. But I had this idea. I was like, I'm going to shoot a live video, because I was averaging I think it was it 80? Did you watch that video, Garrett? Where I shot a 7-inch group. It was 100 yards. I was
averaging.
I
did see it.
Yeah, I was averaging it was after I.
I think I
posted that
did
video.
because Yeah, you did a live video. You're like, that's not as good as I wanted it to be.
I had one right there, like right almost in the bullseye. It was just right there. But I was averaging like 3 to 4 inch groups at 100 yards that day, and I was like, I'm gonna do this on live. And then I shot a 7-inch group. I'm like, God dang it, like.
You're like, never mind.
Yeah, and everybody's like, oh yeah. I'm like, best guess gets a sticker of how close they are to the group, and everybody's like 2 inches, 3 inches. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna make everybody look good here. And then my buddy gets on there. Bigger than the size of your hand. You fucking asshole. And I'm like, hey, you want a sticker afterwards? Bastard. But, yeah. Anyways, well, this has been going on for an hour and 42 minutes. Let's wrap this thing up, guys. So, how can my audience
we're
find
on Facebook and Instagram, Lethal Podcast. Oh, God, what is our Instagram? The Lethal Podcast? Yeah. Yeah,
we're mostly active on Facebook. We do
I
Instagram,
suck at Instagram.
some,
I'm
but
sorry.
There's not most of it comes from Facebook, but if we start getting more,
well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know much
Instagram,
about
we'll pay attention to
Instagram
it.
at all, and really like. It's not as easy to interact on Instagram, so we just do more stuff on Facebook. But we do have a website that is probably going to be live in the next 2 days. Just lethalpodcast.com. We'll have all of our episodes on there, along with all of our recommended products and stuff like that. It's a big website. Like I want to say I'm 65 pages deep on it right now. Yeah, it's big. And that's why I keep.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's bad.
You're
it's
running
bad.
down the rabbit hole.
But I mean, we're putting a lot of good information on there for people, and it's it's not it's unbiased. It's pro what works, and we're just trying to put info out there for people. So yeah, we have a website now. Or if you go to it and it's not accessible yet, it will be accessible within a day or two. I promise.
Perfect.
Also, slight shameless plug, and you can get in on this too, Garrett. We have our challenge going, and we have a lot of prizes for said challenge.
Yes, we do.
I can win something.
If you go to our Facebook page,
well, hell, I guess we can. If you're gonna be posting this pretty soon,
posted on the Facebook page.
Let's do that. So we're doing this thing called the Summer Shooting Challenge, and apparently I spent too much time goofing off making the YouTube video and not enough time explaining the rules correctly. So there's 3 classes: there's men's, women, and trad. And you get 1 entry per class. So, if you're a guy, you can 1 video per class, right?
Well,
so you're going to shoot a 5-shot
video,
group, and a lot of people have been doing it live. You don't have to do it live, but I mean, hey, more power to you. Well, I know at my range, I don't have signal. I can't go live. So, and we want people to win these prizes. I'm not trying to make it so difficult people can't win it. Men shoot a 5-group shot at 60 yards. Women, a 5-shot group at 50, and trad, a 5-shot group at 40. Men have a minimum arrow weight of 500 grains. Women have a minimum arrow weight of 450, and trad is 500 as well. So each arrow that you get into the pie plate, or a snack plate, it's like a 6-inch plate, give or take. Yeah, whatever you want.
Dessert
smaller
plate.
Smaller.
The small paper plate, not a dinner plate.
It's not
so
insanely
you're shooting
difficult.
MOA.
And that's we tried to set it up that way to where people had a chance of getting it because we have a lot of prizes to give away. So every arrow you get in there, you get 1 entry. If your arrow is over the heavyweight threshold, which is 650 for men, 550 for women, 650 for trad, you get 2 entries per arrow. So this doesn't mean you get to submit 2 videos. You submit 1 video, and wherever your arrow weight is going to dictate how many entries you get. So anyway, I do a much more poor job of explaining the rules than this on our Facebook page and on our YouTube video. It's our only YouTube video up. We're gonna do some more stuff here pretty soon. But God, okay. So I'm gonna start rattling off some of the prizes. We have 2 packs of 225 grain tough heads. We have a 6-pack of Day 6 Evo HDs, Evo X HDs. What were they called? Evo. Yeah. 125s.
The
Yeah, we
Evo
got a
X, the
6-pack.
broadheads?
Yeah, a 6-pack of
Evo
those.
125s.
A
what I'm
dozen
using.
Sirius Apollo shafts, a 6-pack of Grizzly Stick TDTs, a pack of Grizzly Stick broadheads, and we also have 5 $50 gift cards from Ethics Archery for components or whatever else you want to get. So, and I'm probably missing out on another prize in there somewhere.
Sweet.
But yeah, it's over $1,000 worth of prizes. So, hey, that's what I'm saying. Man, get
I'll
in
take
those,
on
it.
Day 6 off your hands.
I know. And then Brian hooked it up
that's
on
what
that.
I'm
He was,
using
I was
right
like,
now.
hey, can you like send us some stuff? He was like, yeah, I'll send some broadheads. I was like, cool. What are you gonna send? He's like, how about a 6-pack of these? I'm like, oh, okay. So like, these may not these may get lost in shipping and just stay here. But now I've spilled the beans. So yeah, but no,
Right.
it's a lot of good prizes. So yeah, people should get in on that and try and win some stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'll do
Oh,
it in
you
whether I
do.
win
There
or
is
not win,
there
I
is
don't
one
care.
additional.
You don't have to put me
Yeah,
in the
so
box,
I
but
mean,
I'll just do
so
it.
each class gets a
No.
winner, and there's going to be one winner, regardless of how many arrows you get for the funniest video submitted. So, be safe. Like, don't do something like really stupid. But if you like, bonus points if you go and shoot in a banana hammock or something, like that'd be hilarious. So there you go.
Don't give Carter any
That's not
ideas.
Where my mind was going, but
If you do it at a public range, that'd be even funnier.
Yeah.
and it might
I
also
can work
be that you
something
can't
up,
come
yeah.
back to the range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on our Facebook.
Well, that's awesome, guys. That's and that's on your Facebook.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, if you guys want to go, be sure to check that out, and I'll submit my entry here as soon as I can. I don't have a bow right now,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I
we're
got
going to-
I got
it's
some
It makes
trad
it
bows.
It makes it
You have
25th.
until
Yeah,
the
you got like 3
25th.
weeks. Yeah, something like that.
You have until August
25th.
25th.
Okay.
You got time.
Yeah. Well, I won't have my bow for another week, so
Well, you'll have time.
Yeah, dude, man.
I'll just practice with my trad bow, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
You get as
why
many-
I wasn't.
many
I was
tries
like,
as you
I told
can
people in the
until you hit
video,
the
like,
pie
shoot as
plate
many
or
times
the
as you
snack
want to,
plate,
like
so-
record as many times as you need to. Like I don't care. Like it doesn't matter to me. Exactly.
Just
So.
upload the one you want to count.
Well, man, I
Yeah.
Everybody's
tell you
gonna look
what,
like a rock star
the
on
people
there.
that have
Yeah,
lived
that's
it
the whole
have
point.
done really well. They've done really, really well. So I mean, more kudos
Yeah,
to
they
them.
have.
Yeah,
I'd be
that's
sitting
true,
there
too.
shooting 5-shot groups all day until I got all of them in, and that's the one I'm uploading. But yeah, man, the people that Facebook lived it so far are freaking crushed it.
Yeah.
So props to
Yeah.
them.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the show, and I'm going to upload this here probably this week. So hopefully you guys that listen to this can get entered in your giveaway and start checking your podcast
Absolutely.
out.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
worries.
Appreciate you.
See ya. All right, that's this episode. And be sure to check out www.onpointpodcast.com and click on the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter by entering your email, and really appreciate everybody that does that. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so by going on YouTube and supporting the YouTube channel, which right now is my main revenue. You can become a patron, which I'm always needing more patrons, and you can do that at www.patreon.com/onpointpodcast, and really any amount goes straight into putting it back into the podcast, or reviews, testing equipment. It just goes straight towards growing the platform and is greatly appreciated. Or you can sign up for the newsletter at onpointpodcast.com. There's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of free ways to do it. But if you're in a position to monetarily support the podcast, that would be amazing. Outside of that, guys, I will see you on the next one. Bye.